Haitians dead getting to America. When is enough enough? When will the American dream stop causing needless deaths? I'm Addi Banks, and this is my report. June 15th, 2022 AP. Haiti mourns 11 women from fatal voyage near Puerto Rico. Donica Cotto writes from San Juan, Puerto Rico, the caskets rolled in one by one, lined up in front of friends and family who had no idea that many of the 11 Haitian girls and women they were preparing to bury had decided to flee their country. They were teenagers, mothers, students, university graduates, all aboard a grossly overloaded boat that capsized last month in the open waters northwest of Puerto Rico. It was one of the deadliest voyages in the region in recent months. The boat was carrying an estimated 60 to 75 migrants, of which 11 were found dead. At least a dozen are still missing, and 38 were rescued, 36 of them Haitians fleeing a deeply unstable country, fighting a surge in poverty and violence. Mourners held aloft their phones at the church and Rainy Cemetery on Wednesday as they live streamed the mass and burials on social media. They zoomed in on certain caskets for families back in Haiti who couldn't afford to fly to Puerto Rico, and for Haitian immigrants living illegally in the United States mainland who feared being arrested if they traveled but longed to say goodbye to the victims, including 2 girls aged 15 and 16. Quote, "Today we bury their remains, but not their lives and hopes," said one of the 5 priests officiating the ceremony, as one man attending the service closed his eyes tightly before tears began to form. One man lost his 23-year-old sister, as well as 6 cousins on the voyage who were never found. He flew to Puerto Rico from West Palm Beach at the urging of a local Haitian leader who helped identify the bodies and who has housed and fed all those who arrived for the funeral. "If you've never lived in Haiti," he said, "you don't know what hardship is. You don't know what misery is." Haiti, the country of more than 11 million people, is fighting a 180% increase in kidnappings and a 17% rise in homicides in the past year. This, according to the United Nations. Dozens of people, including women and children, have been killed and raped in recent months as gangs fight over territory and gain more power following the July 7th assassination of President Moïse. Tens of thousands of Haitians have lost their homes amid gang battles that also have shut down access to the country's northern and southern regions, the latter still trying to recover from a magnitude 7.2 earthquake last August that killed at least 2,000 people. Haiti's worsening situation has prompted thousands to flee their country despite the dangers of illegal human trafficking. The trip that often turns deadly. Some pay to cross the treacherous Mona Passage to reach Puerto Rico from their neighboring Dominican Republic, while others are dropped off in Cuba, the Bahamas, or the Turks and Caicos Islands in their quest to reach the United States. In late May, more than 840 Haitians aboard one boat landed in Cuba, the largest such single arrival in recent history. Meanwhile, hundreds of Haitians have reached Florida in recent months after swimming ashore. United States authorities also have reported a big spike in the number of Haitian migrants detained throughout the Caribbean in comparison with previous years. The vast majority of these traveling are men, which makes the death of 11 women even more unusual. Those mourning them said, it's inevitable that other fatal voyages will occur in upcoming months. Quote, this is not going to end. It's not the first one, nor will it be the last one. We've been suffering for centuries and no one has been listening, said one woman, adding that she hasn't lost hope. I believe that before I close my eyes, I will see a better Haiti. A better Haiti? So, 2022, what is left of Haiti? What is left is a place where nobody wants to live. Before the lights are turned out and the last person leaves Haiti, who will look in the mirror in France, where so much wealth was sent to pay freedom debt? In America, where interference in politics and robbing the national treasure occurred while corrupting the few leaders, which have paved the way for collapse of government control in deference to outsiders' demands. Consider this article. These Haitians were children when a United States funded project evicted them from their land. They can't afford college. This from BuzzFeed News on June 15, 2022, Carla Zevadovsky reporting. Caracol, Haiti, on October 27, 2012. 12-year-old Dani was awash with hope. Just 2 miles from her home, the world's elite gathered to inaugurate the Caracol Industrial Park, a mini city dedicated to producing cheap clothes for Americans while heralding a bright future for Haitians. Actor Ben Stiller and Sean Penn, American fashion designer Donna Karan, And British airline mogul Richard Branson cheered as Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton took their turns at the podium. Quote, children will go to school, will be healthier, will have more of their own dreams fulfilled because their mothers had good jobs. Then Secretary of State Clinton told the crowd. So this is indeed a great day. That sounds like the message that Vice President Harris has been reporting at the Summit of the Americans to stem illegal immigration by giving those mothers jobs and those children childcare and free lunches. At a luncheon for investors, meals were served atop gold-colored plates. Smiling attendees clapped as then President Michel Martelly addressed the crowd with a Haiti is open for business sign behind him. Funded by the United States government and the Inter-American Development Bank, the 300 million 600-acre park would be home to a constellation of garment factories producing clothes that end up at Target, Old Navy, Nike, Victoria's Secret, and Walmart, among others, and would provide 65,000 jobs to locals. The officials announced one of the park's largest tenants was S&H Global that opened a school for about 650 children. To make room for the park, authorities had seized land from Donnie's family and around 400 other farming families, a total of around 3,500 people who relied on the plots for food and income. But her father remained optimistic. The Haitian government and the park's investors had said, he remembered, that they would compensate them with new land elsewhere and scholarships for their children. It's a good program, Donnie's father recalled thinking at the time. But the promises never materialized. Today, a 2018 agreement with additional compensatory measures, including vocational training and small business loans, has only partly been implemented, and more than 80% of the families eligible to receive land are still waiting while struggling to put food on the table. The project's sweeping promises are just a few in a series made by Western enterprises that were intended to rebuild Haiti after a devastating 2010 earthquake. Instead, they've had the opposite effect, condemning a generation of children to poverty and causing irreversible damage to their families' livelihoods. Their plight has only been exacerbated by the political and economic crises. Some charcoal farmers wonder if they will ever receive fair redress for their lost properties. Quote, maybe they're waiting for people to die so they don't have to give them land, said one of them. Donnie, now in her early 20s, was part of a generation of young Haitians who were supposed to benefit from the opportunities the Caracal Project was intended to provide. She was the first person in her family to finish high school with excellent grades and near perfect attendance. She dreamed of becoming a nurse, but with her family's farmland gone, her parents couldn't afford the tuition for college. Instead, she found a job at the industrial park that displaced her family. She now spends her days working at S&H Global, a Haitian subsidiary of a South Korean textile giant with a long record of labor violations in Nicaragua and Guatemala. Donnie wakes before dawn for exhausting shifts on the factory floor, where the money she makes is only enough for one of the day's meals. Quote, "We had dreams, but nothing happened in our lives. I don't dream about it anymore." Donnie's hope lay not in the land nor the park, but far beyond it. She got a passport last year. When she is able to save some money, Donnie said she's planning on going to the Dominican Republic. She knows it will not be the most welcoming place for her. Earlier this year, the Dominican Republic's government began building a wall to fend off Haitian migrants. Many of those who make it across then take flimsy boats across the Caribbean Sea to Puerto Rico, a dangerous journey during which, I remind you, 11 women drowned in May. But leaving, Donnie said, is the only way that she can become a nurse. A better Haiti? Will the expats go back home? It is impossible to build a homeland from someplace else. America, the Dominican Republic, anywhere but at home. Are you waiting for the UN and others to fix Haiti? Who owes Haiti money for stolen treasures and resources? What about the hatred among Haitians living in different parts of the country, representing the elite against the rural and the poor? Who is arranging and profiting from Get to America schemes? How much did each of those 11 females pay for their death sentence? Who in America encouraged them to make the voyage and perhaps paid for it? They too are complicit in their deaths. In my opinion, Haiti is already dead when the brightest and best believe with all of their hearts immigrants and resources that getting away is the ideal solution for the goals in their lives. They hear, forget Haiti. When this happens, the desperate leftover citizens further resolve into chaos and degenerate into new realities. But know that it began with those best able to rescue their homeland, turning their backs and seeking a better life elsewhere, making money, winning political offices, sending their children to elite schools. You may say that, like immigrants from everywhere who came to America from around the world, this is the story. But I say that if so many in your homeland are trying to escape it, then that makes it a different situation. Look at the faces of these women. Look at the thousands of faces in the country, those who have escaped, trying to get away. And ask yourself, though sympathetic, what is the cost to Americans most impacted, most hurt, most displaced by legal and illegal immigration? Ask yourself why you have not bothered to read the numerous federal and private sector reports on them. And finally, ask yourself, do all Black lives really matter?